You'll take 3 months to buy a watch. You'll probably take a week. I take about 3 minutes where I'm like, if I have the money and I have to buy it, yeah, I got to buy it now. And then maybe I'll fall out of love with it.
I just
and
walk around and
hopefully
say, is it me?
Right, exactly. Is this me?
Is this me?
Yeah. Exactly.
So Josh, a question that I always get from clients is, when is the right time to buy a watch?
Sure.
And I think that clients that are on the fence about purchasing a piece that they've been looking at for a long time, whether it's a Panerai that we have on the table or a Rolex, there's sometimes indecisiveness comes into the decision. So what advice do you give clients that are somewhat indecisive, don't really know when that right time is to buy a watch, that you sort of relay to them when that right point is?
So, yeah, I mean, I think we all get this same exact question, like, is it a good time to buy, right?
Pretty much every day, I would say.
That's probably on the top 3 questions we get all the time. And the answer is really, there's no good or bad time to buy a watch, right? But if the question is, and that's what you have to break down, that's what I always ask follow-up questions, like, so are you saying, is it a good time to buy this watch in terms of the resale value? Is it a good time to buy this watch in terms of the styles? Like, is this the kind of style of watch that's going to be popular for the next whatever? Or is the watch going to be discontinued? There's a lot of different factors that go into that. So, I mean, those are the questions I ask, the follow-up questions. Like, what's the most important thing to you in terms of making this purchase? I think you would agree that question usually means, what's the market on this watch? Am I overpaying, or am I buying a watch that's about to drop in price? So it's hard to say, right?
No, I definitely agree. And I think that value a lot of the time comes into the question. Specifically we were talking a little bit about it earlier about Rolex that's going to get discontinued.
Yeah.
And customers not really knowing exactly, is it going to happen or is it not going to happen? But there's these rumors that fly around.
Sure.
So they're constantly gauging on, is now the right time to buy before it gets discontinued and the price goes up? Or should I wait a little bit longer? Is the price going to go down? So
that's a double-edged sword in my opinion, because it's like, you shouldn't be buying the watch because you think it's going to get discontinued. You should be buying a watch because you love the watch. So there's a caveat there. If you've always wanted the watch and you've been saving, you don't know if you should just go ahead and do it, then fine, do it because of that rumor. But don't buy a Hulk because you think you don't really like it, but it might be worth more. Like, you should buy the watch because you like it. I think that the right time to buy, that question is, everybody's different. And to your point, every reason is different behind that question. But some of the stuff that's happening right now globally, like the market, I think is more significant than, is a watch going to be discontinued, right? Like, I think the conversation I've been having with a lot of my collectors lately is it the time to stop buying Panerai and Rolex and finally start with Journe, or finally get that Patek I've wanted? So for me, I pulled this watch, and I've read the comments. People are saying, show the watches on the table. So guess what? I'm going to do it for you. This is my absolute favorite Grail Journe. Absolute, hands down, favorite watch. Full platinum, Centograph. This one happens to be the
Black Label.
The Black Label, which I'll take any Centograph, but Black Label super special. But this for me would be like my Grail watch. So if I had that conversation with you, for instance, and I said, listen, I've got 2 Rolexes, I've got a Panerai, I've got this. When is the right time to buy my Centograph? For me, that would be right now.
Yeah.
Because the market's where it's at, because there's uncertainty in the market, and that only means that if you're liquid enough to buy this, do it.
Well, so this watch has been discontinued, yeah?
yes.
So the best time to buy this watch was probably before it got discontinued. Yeah.
Correct. And
By the way, black strap with red stitch on this all day long. Not quite the red strap for me.
well,
I
something
like
like this, I think also a little bit too is that we talk a lot about Journe on the shows, is also about access. Because on watches that are extraordinarily rare, there's not many made. And if other collectors or other consumers are sort of moving into that brand, they're looking at what's popping up, what's available, and they're trying to buy as much as they can now before it completely disappears. Something like a Panerai, where you talked a little bit about, is now the right time to trade out of a Panerai. You're seeing more of them on the market. Watches that were a lot more expensive are coming down in price. Vintage Panerais that used to bring big premiums.
A-series, pre-Vendome.
The market's
stuff
all
like
over
that.
the place. Nobody really knows.
Well, there's other factors in
what
that
the
too than
outlook.
just the market.
That's kind of why we pulled this watch.
Right.
Look what this was, 5 years ago.
It's nearly a $20,000 watch.
compared to now. Now it's like, should I buy this titanium 562 or should I kick in a little extra cash and buy a solid gold case? You know, and if that's your thing, then why not? It's,
Well, I think like that's where like that question
it's
to
actually
me,
a really cool piece.
it's a very cool piece. It was made during an era where there can't really be too many of these.
Yeah.
And it actually offers extraordinarily value for what you're getting.
Oh, yeah.
When
Value
you-
for dollars.
When you feel the heft of the case, the overall look of the watch, relative to what else you can get out in the market new for that price point.
Right. I mean, so if you compare, so this watch is probably like mid-teens or so right now on a retail basis. So if you want to go out and buy this, it's a Panerai 140. It's been discontinued. This watch is probably going to be picked up right now in the mid-teens. But if you compare this to, say, what's another like a hefty gold watch on a strap, maybe like a Skydweller.
Yeah.
So how much are you paying for a Skydweller on a strap right now? Like if you're looking to, if I'm a consumer looking to buy one,
I mean,
nearly $30,000.
yeah, mid-30s, I would say.
Right. So, I mean, you're paying literally double for that watch. And obviously, there's more complication there. But, I mean, if you're looking for a large, like a hefty gold watch, you can see where the value is. So if somebody's asking me, oh, is it a good time to buy a gold Panerai? I go, absolutely.
Now is the time to buy a gold Panerai. If you've
Maybe
been
not the
looking at one.
retail, but pre-owned without a doubt. At market
Yeah,
price,
hands
without
down.
a doubt.
100%.
I think that's probably, you know, these three pieces on the table that we're playing with here, obviously bigger ticket, the stainless steel. That's a piece that we pulled because it's probably not the right time to buy that watch.
Yeah.
If we're talking about
Market
entering
price.
a market and a barrier to entry, that piece has seen its day and is probably going to stay, you know, where it's at for a while. But the Panerai, specifically the two, they're essentially no-brainers if you're liquid enough to just who cares and buy the watch.
Well, let's talk about these a little bit. So this
the
is
Dumet's going crazy.
So this is a conversation that I'm having a lot with collectors, is with the sports watch market being as hyped as it is
Right.
and absolutely bonkers, should I be looking at something different? Like, you know, are there buys out there where I may not have the opportunity again, or if I'm gonna spend 90 to 100,000 on something, I'd rather buy a watch that's more complicated, that has a much more expensive retail, than buy a watch for way over the retail price.
Well, so just to add to that, so like for a watch like this, you can either spend, say, like low hundreds for a watch like this, right?
This is actually just under 100 now.
So, okay, so just under 100,000. Or how much is a 5980 rose gold, full rose gold going for right now? I know they were up at 180, they're a little bit down now.
Call it 150.
So $150,000 for the gold sports watch, or you can get the pinnacle of what Patek is and Patek makes for, you know, $50,000 less, right?
And
A
that's-
BMW less.
To me,
It's insane.
It's insane.
It
And
is
like,
insane.
and that's where these, I think, like I hate to use the word no-brainer, but I think that it's, you know, they're going overlooked. That is two words. They're going overlooked right now.
Sure.
And you know what? These are the types of opportunities that come along where when you say to yourself, 10
gonna
years from
spend the
now,
money.
20 years from now, you know,
But that's a different
what
type of
prices
guy.
like. That is a different kind of guy.
Yeah.
That guy that you're selling this to because of the value proposition is the guy that's sitting in the corner with all the money and is waiting for the market to crash because he's ready for this watch. The
Or he
guy
trades
that's-
up to it.
Yeah, but the guy that
I can
this
see-
is the proposition watch. This is like, now is the time to strike while it's hot. This dealer's had two of them. I know they want to get rid of one, and you make that offer. You know, like the 5980R, that watch is just, you know, it's all speculation because the market is what it is on it and it's high. It's probably not coming down. So I don't know that guy's like, should I spend the money on the rose gold piece or should I buy this?
Well, if somebody's-
For me, just kind of the collectors that I'm talking about, it's probably a different kind of guy is what I'd imagine.
Right.
But I can see that watch, both watches being in the same collection. So if somebody's looking to spend, hey, listen, you know what? I just sold my company. I sold a bunch of stock, whatever
Yeah.
it may be. I want to spend, you know, $100,000 plus on a watch. And these watches are both in the same range. They're both from the same brand. So somebody asked me, is it a good time to buy a Patek? People ask you these questions. It's like, oh, is it a good time to buy, you know, a Bentley? Well, it depends on which one you're buying, right? Or a Ferrari. So that's kind of where I'm going.
I
with
just
something
want
like
to,
this.
for my guys in the comments that are show the watches. So I don't know, this is the 5270G. I don't know if we said that when we picked the watch up.
We didn't. So this is a
So-
5270G. This is
Yeah.
the 001, so it's the first iteration of the watch when it originally launched.
And I don't think you could show the watch without popping one of these.
And it was the
bad boys.
first Patek Philippe perpetual chrono with an in-house Patek Philippe movement.
Right.
And
Beautiful
you know what
piece.
we're seeing a lot too now is customers that are getting, let's call it a guy that gets an RM, he's had it, he's worn it, he gets it at retail, the watch is worth over, and they're able to use the upside in some of these pieces in order to get into a grail watch like this. A watch that they never thought that they would ever be able to get, but the pricing makes sense, and as a
it's just like, so I hate to keep saying down market, but same thing. Like a lot of people made a lot of money in the real estate market in our last downturn, right? So same thing. Guys are getting lucky, get an RM at retail, accidentally kick up 50 grand, 80 grand, right? And now all of a sudden, if you want to put that back into real estate, into the watch, you end up with something like this.
All right, so that's a good time to trade then.
Yeah,
in terms of timing.
Take advantage of the market.
Right.
And I think everybody has their own way of when is the right time to buy a watch. And some guys have a methodology to it. Some guys look at it like, okay, if I get rid of a rose gold watch, I want to replace it with a rose gold watch.
Absolutely.
Or, how is this going to fit back into my collection? Do I have that complication? Do I not? For me, a lot of the time, what I look at is, if a watch comes along that I absolutely love, that the right time for me is that I have to love it enough that I'd want to get rid of something that I have.
Yeah.
And that if I'm not willing to get rid of something that I have, that I probably, it's not worth it. And every once in a while, a watch comes along that I just say, wow.
Gotta own it.
I have to own it. And
that
was for me. That was.
Is that one of the ones from the package that I brought in, or is this?
If a watch I have a crush on can last 72 hours of me scrutinizing it in my head, then I buy the watch.
Yeah.
Because I fall in and out of love with watches so quickly.
And
this is actually a really pretty piece.
Yeah, I mean, this is a watch that I honestly, I lusted for one for a long time. It's a Roger Dubuis Sympathy 37 millimeters. I brought it on the shows before with Tim. I absolutely love what it represented in terms of how avant-garde it was at the time, that it was he was a trailblazer in terms of not only design, but also watchmaking. And it was a combination of the two. And no stone was left unturned in terms of the money that was put into making this as nice as possible. And for me, what's so special about some of these watches, where you may not necessarily see it in a brand new IWC these days, is when somebody does something as good as it can possibly be done. And that for me was just super special, and it comes across in the watch.
What's funny? One of my customers described like these first generation Roger Dubuis as paddocks on mushrooms, and that's what it's kind of what it is, right? So it's all the finishing of paddock.
It's one man.
It is a good description.
Yeah.
It's one man beating the drum, right? And that's when that's when one word meant something. We're doing that direction.
Yeah.
This is cool. I know you know this, but I like this piece. This is one of the original generations with the crystal that's cut for the case.
Correct.
The newer generations had that circle crystal, and it was because of like how complex these crystals were.
And I love hearing that. Like, I love hearing that when something is too expensive to do, that it transitions out, and you just say to yourself, like, okay, like that.
Those are the ones I want.
Those are the ones I want.
Now, if you need to replace this crystal, you're not gonna want to hear that as much. But that's part of owning. I mean, just beautiful dial. It's really, really cool. It's old worlds, like someone lusted over this way before you knew this existed.
100%.
And there's a cool aspect to
well,
that.
so then just to bring it back to kind of what our topic here in terms of timing. So when people are chasing stainless steel paddocks and Rolex sport watches and Audemars and even Journes, when's a good time to buy something like this? Like, that's the time when no one's looking for that. Is the best time when you're one of the 12 buyers in the United States. That,
hopefully there's more.
Right. Well, yeah.
Don't tell him that. He's gonna go sell it.
Yeah. Well.
No, I mean,
market's down. Sell.
Well, you know what though? I think that, again, if you're passionate about it and you love the product, then you're gonna fall in love with what you fall in love with.
Right.
But if you're looking for things that you fall in love with and also opportunities, then that's. A lot of guys will say, what's the next Journe going to be?
Right.
Because, and they're looking at it from the perspective of, okay, I want an independent, I love the design, I love the look, but I also want something where there's value retention in that, I'm not just buying something that's going to plummet.
Well, it's a cross section, right?
Correct.
That's the thing. So like, for me, we were talking about like buying watches that are going to be discontinued. So the last few years, I've been keeping my eye on like things like Rolex things, right? So like last year, the Batman, I'm like, all right, well, I believed either the Batman or the Hulk was going to be discontinued. I picked up a Batman before it was discontinued, got lucky with it, right? So this year, this is my bet. So like, I'm buying watches that I like.
You seem remarkably well informed.
Yeah, well, trying my best, right? But I mean, I'm buying watches that I like, that I really like, but also like, hey, what's the added bonus here? So if I'm wrong, what's my downside?
Right.
Right, and that's another way to collect too. So there's a lot of different things. So there might not be a huge upside for this, but this is a watch that you love. Maybe not everybody loves this watch. It's not run of the mill, right? Whereas what I'm wearing or what Jason's wearing right now, very run of the mill, but we're both absolutely in love with these watches.
Yeah, worst
but
case
also,
scenario,
if this doubles in price, that's going to be out the door, and so is this. Yeah. So I don't know if this doubles in price. I think you might wear this with prestige because it's not replaceable.
I love it. Correct. And you know what? I think that sometimes it's just, again, it's about loving the product and being happy that it goes up, but still wanting to enjoy it.
These are very replaceable, whereas that is not at all.
While we might stand to make a gain and he might not, the gain is that he bought that for a fraction of what the retail price was.
That's exactly.
And I also think that if you look at what something is, when you think about, okay, it's a bi-retrograde perpetual calendar in a rose gold case that was made during a pre-Richemont era, and when you then look at what they cost and you say, okay, you can pick these up for sub 30,000.
Right.
Which,
you pay less than 20 for that thing.
It's quite a bit of money. But when you look at the comps on what brands are delivering now or what other things cost that are comparable, it just doesn't make sense. And that's why, again, I've been hoarding these in the back.
For generations, not generations, but for 10 years, 15 years, that's why people bought vintage.
Right.
Before vintage got popular because of the patinas and the mistakes and all that stuff,
sure.
It was because it was cheaper. It was because, I really want this steel sports watch, but this date just 36 millimeters way cheaper. So I think that you stand to see like that. I don't know how long do you keep watches? Like, is that a forever watch or is that like for the next 18 months or
2 or 3 years? Now?
2 or 3 years. I will dwell on something and look at a watch like, do I want to keep this forever? And so I go into the decision-making process based on I want to keep it forever, and could I see myself having it forever? And generally, when like the answer is yes, like that for me is like the emotional block of getting something. If I get to the point where I'm like, I can only see myself having this for 6 months to a year, I end up never doing it.
Yeah, I can see that, but like it's hard with what we do to not think like
because every day
if somebody offered you twice what you pay for that, you'd be gone tomorrow.
No, definitely not.
Get out of here, man.
No,
well, it's not
chance.
replaceable though. That's the thing. That's the thing.
Get
So
outta
like
here.
No.
for your watch and my watch, yes, but you know what? As much as I don't want to agree with you,
I call your bluff on that one.
No, I agree with
I've already been offered twice.
Because first of all, he didn't pay much for it. All right? I mean,
That's not true.
He's a watch insider, okay? So, he got a good deal on it, but that's not replaceable. Where else are you going to get that watch? Especially one with that he's got some history with it. So I understand what you're saying. I wish that I put that much thought into purchasing my watches.
Oh no, you're like a goldfish.
I buy now, think later.
Yeah, you're
a goldfish. But it also
but I rotate quick.
If I said, okay, I'm going to then take the money and I'm going to want to just buy another watch, I'd want the same thing.
For me, I buy it when it strikes me, and like I'm the kind of person who I get laser focused. I see something, I have to have it. Let me just buy it. I have to buy it tonight. I can't.
You showed me your
like,
is
ooh,
it
I
pronounced-
Helios.
buy it
your
now.
Helios today. I mean, again, like first off,
I paid over retail for that thing.
over retail. What'd you say? $950.
$900 I paid for the watch. It's a $675 retail, and I had to buy it the night that I bought it. Like my mind was thinking, if I don't go and find one now, I'll never be able to find the watch, and that's how I buy things a lot of time. But no, I mean, so in terms of the right time to buy, it's going to be different for everyone, obviously, right? So the right time to buy for Jason's going to be different than for me because mine is always right now. Jason's going to be, okay, 3 weeks from now, and you're going to be, if I'm still wearing the watch by the end of the week, okay, I'll buy it. But I mean, it's if you're looking for watches and your only concern is selling it for more than you paid for it, I mean, our job, what we do here is pretty stressful, right? We're always, and so that, in my opinion, that's not your main business. It takes all the joy out of wearing the watches, right? Because then if I'm buying the watch only hoping to sell it for more, then I'm probably never going to wear it either because if I get a scratch on it now, it's going to be costing me money.
Right.
Or if I, whatever it may be. So the answer, whenever someone asks me that, it's always like 3 or 4 follow-up questions. And a lot of times it comes to, what else do you have in your collection?
100%.
This is never going to be your first watch. If somebody calls me and says, is this a good time to buy this? And they tell me, no, I've never bought a Swiss watch. I'm never going to tell them to buy the first generation Roger Dubuis. So let's start with like a Speedmaster or a Sub or something that if you get it and you hate it, it's going to be okay to get rid of.
Right.
Well, I think
you're not
that's
going to run away from the hobby.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think just doing exactly that, asking questions, to get a better understanding of what the customer, what the collector has in their collection and what direction they're looking to go in is important because, again, you don't want to offer somebody a, now's the right time to buy a Jaeger
Duomet.
LeCoultre Duomet when they really, are probably looking to buy, it could be a Steel Sports Rolex.
Right. Well, if it's going to be your everyday wear, and that's the thing. So, like, these are the questions that people should be asking themselves, and sometimes they don't
This
have
watch is
anybody to bounce
crazy.
them off. That watch is amazing. I know. Our friend Tim Masso is a fan of that watch. Funny story.
We're gonna just cut this video out, just do a talking watches of him with this, and then cut back into us.
Well, you know the story about Tim. He's got the black dial 200 piece variant of this watch, and when him and I went to go visit Jorn in Switzerland, he was wearing the watch, and he was excited to show it to Jorn, and needless to say, Jorn really wasn't excited to hear about the watch, and we were at dinner at Jorn's restaurant. He owns like a steak restaurant in Geneva, like near his near his factory, and Tim was sitting. I was sitting across from Tim and Jorn. Tim was sitting to Jorn's right. He shows him the watch, asks him what he thinks about it. I think in French, and Jorn's response was that it was too thick. So Tim decided that dinner was over quick and decided he was gonna. He really didn't have anything more to say to Mr. Jorn until the next day. So that was the end of that night. But that was a pretty funny interaction between them.
I think Jordan thinks all watches are too thick, though.
Right.
Well, if he could make every watch thinner, he would.
You know what?
And
I agree with him, by the way.
One of the criticisms, from my understanding, is that he has of even his own watches, is that there's always more perfection. There's always something else.
Well, making it thinner and smaller is increasingly more difficult.
The
That's why
complication.
when you look at some of Patek Philippe's biggest complications, whether they're minute repeaters or split-second chronos, the most complicated ones are the super small, thin ones.
Yeah.
Because building a minute repeater, while difficult, is a lot easier in a much bigger case than it is in a much smaller one. So
Well, it's not even just the case; it's the components too, right?
Correct.
The scale of the size. If you wanted to build a minute repeater that was the size of this table, it would be pretty simple. But to build something,
Even I could do it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about that.
Tim could. I don't know about you.
But yeah. But no, I mean, I think it's just, back to kind of what we were talking about. Everybody's going to have their own kind of barrier to entry, obstacles to overcome, and whether that's you asking yourself as a collector those questions or reaching out to somebody and having a watch friend or a trader that you can bounce that off of. A lot of times, guys will do, I get a lot of collectors that'll do 3 months worth of research, know they want a 562, call me, say, hey, I really want a 562, I love the watch.
And then you talk about it.
And then they're like, I think it'll be great for every day. I love stainless steel, and you're like, well, it's titanium. They just need
Back to
that
the drawing
extra
board.
kind of wall to bounce it off of, and it's what we do. That's why it's fun.
Yeah, no, and I think that's what the forums always represented, or watch collectors clubs, where it's, an open forum or it's an opportunity for a collector to talk with other collectors about what they're thinking. Again, back to our topic, when is the right time to buy? Should I get this? And that's where, not to toot our own horn, but I think that we excel because we're watch lovers also.
Yeah, if you're trying to do this job, you won't be successful unless you actually like watches.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that if you do this job for more than like 3 months and you're not absolutely in love with watches, you got to get out of here. Like that's about how long it took me, from literally knowing nothing about watches to being like obsessed. And now at this point, I mean, I have my watch collection's worth more than probably both my cars put together. So.
Well, no, what it shows though is we have experts within the office.
Oh, yeah.
So nobody claims to know everything, or so if it comes down to, if I have a question about a Panerai, it was always a passion of yours.
Yeah.
So you're the first person I call when there's a Panerai question, and I think that
I think I have 8 of them now.
Yeah, I mean, but I think that's where
Time to sell.
That's how you know when you love the product.
Oh yeah, when you buy too many of them.